Hey, Transmath class, we're going to take a look at the notes for section 3.3. Alright, so we're going to continue on with, be working on multiplying fractions. They're going to give a different visual interpretation of multiplying fractions that we'll take a little look at, but I'll also show you the traditional way to multiply fractions. Okay, so writing these whole numbers as fractions, remember what we needed to do was just put a 1 in the denominator each time that we would write a whole number as a fraction. You just put a 1 in the denominator. So 17 over 1, 29 over 1, 42 over 1, 67 over 1, and 125 over 1. All right. So it says, how do we use an area model to multiply two fractions? So when using an area model, remember, like when we were doing like square, like if we had a box here and we'd say it's 1 unit by 1 unit, we're going to kind of use that idea, except instead of being a full 1 unit, it's going to be like a fraction of a unit, like 1/2 or 1/4 or something like this. Okay, so for example here, they kind of break this down for us. If we were going to use an area model to multiply 1/2 times 1/3, they would take a square and break it into, well, thirds one direction, and then they'd break it into halves the other direction. And then they kind of shade it in, you know, so if we shade it in 1/3 in yellow, and then we shade in the 1/2 in green, the overlapping parts of those shadings would represent the product of those two fractions, and they kind of did that in a lighter green. So just one of those overlaps, and then there's a total of 6 squares, which would mean that the product of 1/2 and 1/3 is 1/6. Now, if you look up here and you just multiply, straight across, 1 times 1 and 2 times 3, 1 times 1 is 1 and 2 times 3 is 6, which is really, what you're going to see here with this area model. They're trying to give us a visual for this, okay? All right, so in a similar way, it says complete the area model to find the product. So they've broken it into fourths in one direction, and then what we need to do is break it into thirds the other direction. So there we have thirds. And they said we're going to do 3/4, so we'd shade in like 3 of those, and then 2/3, which would be 2 of them this way. Now if I look at what's overlapping here, I've got, you can see I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 overlapping squares. And how many total squares do I have? I've got 12 total. So I've got 6 out of 12. Now if I go up here and I multiply across, I'm going to see I get that same thing, which is 6. 6 over 12. 2 times 3 is 6, and 3 times 4 is 12. But I can show it with the area model as well. Okay, so the product of two proper fractions is less than either of the fractions. So when you multiply fractions together, like for example here, we multiplied 2/3 times 3/4. Those are both fractions that are bigger than half. And when I multiply them, I get 6/12, which is equal to half. So you do get an answer that's going to be smaller when you're multiplying, two numbers that are less than 1. In other words, two proper fractions. Your solution is going to be something that's less than 1. Okay, so in this first one, I think we saw this already. If I do 1/2 times 1/3, so I'll go halves this way, and I'd go like thirds this way. And if I shade in 1/2 in green this way, and if I were to shade in 1/3 the other direction in pink this way, I have one overlapping square here. So 1, and how many total squares do I have? I've got 6 total kind of rectangles there. So my answer to that would be 1/6. But if you multiply across again, 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 3 is 6. Okay, in a similar way, we just did this one 3/4 times 2/3, and we saw that that one was 6/12. If we just multiply straight across, we're going to get 6/12 for that. Okay, this one says 1/2 times 3/4. Okay, so I'll go 1/2 this way, and then I'll go fourths the other direction like this. And if I'm doing 1/2, that would be, like this. And if I do 3/4, I got to do 3 of these fourths shaded in like that. And I can see 1, 2, 3 spots where they overlap. So it's 3 out of a total of 8 that I have there. And so my answer would be 3/8. And you can see again, traditional multiplication, 1 times 3 is 3, and 2 times 4 is 8, so that works out that way as well. Okay, another area model, so we've got 1/3 times 3/5. So if I go thirds this way, and if I go fifths the other way, I'll kind of have to do fifths. This might not be perfect, but okay, so there's fifths. So if I do 1/3, which is going to be going this direction. And then if I do 1/5, which is this direction, I only have one overlapping kind of rectangle there, but I have a total of 15 little rectangles if I count those up. So according to the area model, 1 out of 15. And also if I check that with traditional multiplying, oh, hold on here. Sorry, I was supposed to go 3/5, not 1/5. That was my fault. Sorry about that. I thought it said 1/5, it said 3/5. Okay, so I needed to shade in pink 3 of these. 3 of the ones that were broken into fifths, and when I do that, I actually get 3 overlapping colors of pink and green there, so they overlap in 3 spots. So there, 1 times 3 is 3, which is what I should have put there. Okay. Okay, so a problem-solving activity. This involves, they're saying this is a glass company and they're replacing broken and cracked glass. So the questions are going to refer to these kind of gray squares, which are going to be representing sheets of glass. And so it says at the first house, the crew repairs, the repair crew has to fix 2 windows. For one window, they cut a sheet of glass into 1/2, and then they cut 2/3 of the 1/2. So we're going to cut it in half one direction, and then we're going to cut it into thirds in the other direction. Okay, so when we cut it in half, we've got that part, and then when we cut it into thirds, and we're going to do 2 of those thirds, so I'll color in 2 of those. Now when we see we got 2 overlapping shadings there, so I've got those 2. So when I do 1/2 of 2/3, that means times. That means that I would get 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 times 3 is 6. I get 2 6, and that's what I see here. 2 of them are shaded or overlapping, and then there's a total of 6. Okay, so 2 6 is the answer for that one. Okay, next one, it says they take the other half, so it's a half again. So they didn't really write out the fraction, they just said the word half, and then we're going to cut 4/5 of that. Okay, so we're going to go half, and then we're going to cut that into fifths. So we want to cut that into fifths like I did before, the other direction, like this. Didn't do that very evenly, but that's okay. So we're going to do 1/2 one way, so I'll do that in green going this way, and then we have to do 4/5 going the other way. So if I do 4/5, I would just shade in 4 of those 5, and I'm going to do that in pink. So let's go. Whoops. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I can see that my overlapping parts, my overlapping pieces here is this one, this one, this one, and this one. So there's 4 that overlap, and there's going to be a total of 8 if I, or let's see, no, there's actually a total of 10. Because there's 5 on top, 5 on the bottom. So I get 4 out of 10, but that would be the same as 1/2 times 4/5, which would be 4/10 for my answer. Okay, next one we're going to do 1/3. Okay, so the next house, 3 are below, they cut 1/3 of a full sheet, and then cut 1/3 from that 1/3. Okay, so it's 1/3 of 1/3. All right, so if we go thirds one way and thirds the other way, if we cut 1/3 one way and if we cut 1/3 the other way, we get 1 overlapping square out of a total of 9. So 1/9 would be our product of those fractions. All right, just a couple left here. Okay, so we got 2/3 of 3/8. I'm maybe not going to draw this one out because it's going to get kind of a cluster. 2/3 times 3/8. We'll just do this one with traditional multiplication. 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times 8 is 24. And the last one, it says they're going to do 3/4 from a 3/4 sheet. So I'll do this one. It's not too small. So we're going to cut it into fourths this way. We're going to also cut it into fourths the other way, which is going to make 16ths. And then it says we're going to do 3/4 one way, and then we're going to also do 3/4 the other way. So we're doing 3 each way. And then we're going to see we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 spots where they overlap out of a total of 16, which we're going to see is what we get when we would multiply 3/4 times 3/4. Remember, whenever they say it kind of like of, like 3/4 of, that means multiplying fractions. So 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16. So you're going to get 9/16 for that one. Okay, so that's it for lesson 3.3.